before we dive in, brace yourself. If you survived this story without goosebumps crawling up your spine, hit that like button. And if you make it all the way to the end, subscribe. You're clearly built for the dark. The sirens cut through the cold New York night like blades. Red and blue lights painted the towering walls of Attica Correctional Facility, one of the most infamous prisons in the Western world. For decades, it had been whispered about in law schools, police academies, and criminal underworld bars. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like history repeating itself, or breaking open. At 2:14 a.m., Officer Darren Kellerman stood over a body lying motionless in the snow, halfway between the outer fence and the control tower. The air was brutal, but not as brutal as whatever had happened to the man in front of him. A prisoner, still in state-issue browns, face down, hands stiff, and a jagged mark across his throat that looked neither improvised nor rushed. It was deliberate, precise, the kind of mark made by someone who'd done this before. The cold wind rolled down from the hills and carried a metallic scent that felt wrong. Kellerman's voice shook as he radioed in the discovery. Inside the tower, the young guard watching the feed swore under his breath. No one had seen this inmate leave his block. No one had logged a missing body. No one even knew he was gone. Minutes later, investigators arrived. Among them, Special Investigator Lena Rourke. She was known for being relentless, the kind of investigator who didn't blink even when criminals tried to intimidate her. Born in Buffalo, familiar with Attica's bloody past, she carried herself like someone who understood that a prison this old had ghosts, metaphorical, not supernatural, and they were always hungry. She crouched beside the body, brushing away snow from the inmate's ID badge. "Ronald Mulberry," she whispered, "serving life." What was a lifer doing outside his block at 2 a.m.? And why did no one seem to know he was missing? She stood up and scanned the perimeter. The monstrous walls of Attica loomed, scarred by decades of riots, escapes, and cover-ups. To outsiders, Attica was a prison. To those who truly knew it, Attica was a pressure cooker where secrets rotted in the dark. But a murder on the grounds, with 0 alarms triggered, that wasn't just suspicious. It was impossible. Inside the facility, chaos simmered beneath a forced calm. The warden, Elias Strickland, met Rourke in his office, face tight and sweating despite the cold. "Investigator Rourke," he said, voice clipped. "This is an isolated incident. We'll cooperate fully, but let's keep this contained. Public attention isn't what this prison needs." Rourke didn't react. She'd dealt with men like Strickland before, more worried about headlines and bodies. "Your cameras," she said. "I want every feed from midnight to 3 a.m. Strickland hesitated. Just a flicker, but she caught it. "We're retrieving that now," he muttered. "Retrieving, not reviewing, not secured. Retrieving, a subtle word. But in a place like Attica, subtle words got people killed." Back in the yard, snow still falling, Rourke and Detective Mason Hale examined the scene. Hale was new to state-level prison investigations, sharp but not hardened. "Why kill him out here?" Hale asked. "Because someone didn't want him to die inside," Rourke said. "Or did want whoever killed him to be seen." They walked the perimeter, the crunch of snow under their boots the only sound in the quiet hours before dawn. That's when Hale spotted something, half buried near the fence. A torn piece of fabric, dark green, stiff with dried blood, not prison colors. Rourke took it carefully. This isn't from an inmate. As they approached Tower C, something else caught her attention. A faint smear on one of the ladder rungs, barely visible. She swiped her glove across it. A streak of reddish-brown. Blood. "How the hell?" Hale started. Rourke looked up at the tower window. Glass intact, guard inside pacing anxiously. No signs of forced entry. No broken locks. Someone had been up there. Someone who shouldn't have been. When they questioned the tower guard, his story wavered like a cheap alibi. "I didn't see anything," he insisted. "Must have been blind spots." Rourke stared at him. "There are no blind spots in Tower C." That was when he cracked, just a little. His hand shook. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Look, things have been tense. Some guys on the inside, They've been arranging things, moving people. I didn't want to get involved. Who's they? Rourke asked, but he stayed silent, eyes darting toward the warden's office. Inside the prison's D block, whispers spread fast. Mulberry wasn't just any inmate. He was a man who'd been trying to get something out. Letters, confessions, claims of abuse and corruption stretching back years. No one knew what he had, but everyone knew he'd become a liability. Rourke learned this from an unlikely source, another lifer named Jonah Pierce. Older, quiet, but respected in ways that mattered behind bars. He agreed to talk, but only in the chapel, where the acoustics made eavesdropping difficult. Mulberry was scared, Pierce said, his voice low. Said he'd gotten hold of something big, something that could tear the walls down. But the walls have ears. Rourke frowned. What did he have? Pierce shook his head. Didn't tell me. Said he didn't trust anyone. Kept saying, if I die, it's because someone in uniform let it happen. Someone in uniform. The words hung in the air like a curse. Back in the security office, the camera footage finally came in. Rourke and Hale watched closely. Hours of empty hallways, silent corridors, guards moving with their usual routines. Then at 1:52 a.m., D-Block's feed flickered. 1 second of static. Just one. When it returned, Mulberry's cell was empty. No alarm? Hale muttered. Rourke played it back in slow motion. Behind the distortion, barely visible, was a silhouette stepping into frame. Tall, broad shoulders, wearing guard-issued clothing, but the face blurred by the static. Almost like someone knew exactly where the camera's weakness was. Freeze it, Rourke said. They stopped the frame. Enhancement only revealing a faint detail, an insignia on the sleeve that didn't belong to the guards currently on duty. An older patch from a retired unit, known only in internal circles. Her stomach tightened. She knew what this meant. Mulberry wasn't just murdered. He'd been extracted, and whoever took him had access, authority, and stealth that only long-serving insiders or someone trying to hide behind them could use. As she leaned closer to the screen, something else appeared in the static. A shape, a container of some kind tucked beneath the bed in Mulberry's cell. A metal box. Pause, Rourke said. Zoom in. Hale's eyes widened. What is that? Rourke didn't answer, because she already knew. Mulberry did hide something. Something worth killing for. And if that box was still inside the cell, she stood abruptly. Get a team to D-Block, she ordered. Now. Hale ran out, but before she could follow, a chilling voice echoed from a hallway. Investigator Rourke. You won't find what you're looking for. She turned. Warden Strickland stood there, the overhead lights casting harsh shadows across his face. Because whatever Mulberry left behind, he said slowly, was never meant to see the light. Rourke stepped closer. What did he have? Strickland smiled. A small, cold smile. Let me show you. He gestured toward a locked basement door beneath the admin wing, one that wasn't on any official map. Rourke hesitated. Strickland unlocked it. The hinges groaned like something waking up, and when the door opened, what they found changed everything. The basement air was thick, stale, and colder than the night outside. It felt like stepping into a place time had forgotten, a place no one was meant to see. Investigator Lena Rourke held her flashlight steady as she descended the concrete steps behind Warden Strickland. Detective Hale followed close behind, one hand near his holster, his eyes adjusting to the murky dark. The beam of light cut across walls lined with aging pipes, rusted filing cabinets, and boxes that hadn't been touched in decades. Everything smelled of damp metal and secrets buried too long. Strickland walked with unsettling calm, as if guiding them through a museum exhibit rather than a hidden chamber connected to a homicide. This area is restricted, he said. Only former wardens and a select administrative circle knew about it. What Mulberry found, it came from down here. Rourke's jaw tightened. You're telling me a convicted murderer stumbled onto a classified archive beneath his own prison? Strickland didn't answer. That was an answer in itself. They reached a steel door with a broken lock, freshly broken. Rourke knelt, running a gloved finger along the metal shards on the floor. Mulberry was here, Hale whispered. No, Rourke corrected softly. Someone brought him here. Strickland swallowed hard. This room. Let me guess, Lena said. Doesn't officially exist? He nodded. Rourke pushed the door open. Inside was a room barely larger than a storage closet. But instead of cleaning supplies or forgotten equipment, it held rows of manila folders sorted by year. 1971, 1972, 1973, continuing onward like a grim timeline of Attica's darkest years. Hale stepped forward. Are these riot archives? Strickland sighed. Autopsy reports, internal memos, incident logs that never went into the public record. Rourke scanned the shelves. Why hide them? Strickland avoided her eyes. Because many contain sensitive actions taken during periods of unrest, decisions that were made quickly, harshly, another subtle word that meant far more than it revealed. Rourke picked up a folder. Inside were black and white photographs from the aftermath of the 1971 uprising, one of the bloodiest prison riots in American history. She didn't need graphic detail to feel the weight of what had happened there, the expressions of fear, the chaos frozen in time. Hale looked sick. So Mulberry found out about this place? Strickland exhaled slowly. He worked in institutional maintenance years ago. A small crew was assigned to replace pipes near the foundation. He must have seen the door. And you didn't report it? Rourke asked. He never said anything. We assumed he'd forgotten it existed. But earlier this year, after some cell searches and staff changes, he became paranoid, kept trying to pass notes, claiming he had evidence of old sins still breathing. Rourke's pulse quickened. Evidence meaning? Strickland gestured toward the corner. A metal shelving unit had toppled sideways, revealing a large gap in the dust. Something had been taken recently. A box, he said. Old, gray, padlocked, stored there long before my tenure. Rourke knelt. Mulberry took it. Strickland nodded. And whoever killed him, Hale said, voice low, took it back. But the room didn't feel empty. Not entirely. Rourke's flashlight caught something half-buried under papers. A small folded note. Fresh paper, not decades old. She snatched it and opened it carefully. A single line in shaky handwriting. They're still here. Her heart dropped. Whoever wrote, that wasn't talking about files. Strickland stepped back, visibly rattled. This is why I didn't want the state investigators involved yet. You open this door, you open history we've barely contained. Rourke glared at him. A man is dead, and you think your reputation matters more than justice. Suddenly, Hale's radio crackled violently. Detective Hale, come in. This is D Block. Sir, we got a situation. Another inmate is missing. Repeat, another inmate is... Static swallowed the rest. Rourke and Hale exchanged shocked looks, then bolted out of the basement. Strickland hesitated, then followed. The prison was waking up with panic. Guards rushed through corridors, metal doors slammed shut, and alarms echoed across cell blocks. By the time Rourke and Hale reached D Block, 2 officers were already tearing through cells, counting heads. A supervisor spotted them. It's Pierce, he said breathlessly. Jonah Pierce. He's gone. Rourke froze. Pierce? The inmate who said Mulberry had evidence. The supervisor nodded. We have no idea how he left. Cameras caught nothing. Cell door was still locked when we checked. Check again, Rourke snapped. 3 guards ran to Pierce's cell. The door was intact, lock untouched, but the cell was unmistakably empty. Rourke stepped inside, scanning every corner. The mattress was slightly disturbed. Dust patterns on the floor suggested someone had moved carefully, deliberately, like they were trying to leave no trace. Something glinted beneath the pillow. She pulled it out, a metal tag. Hale frowned. What is it? Rourke held it to the light. An old corrections badge. But not from this decade, or the one before. 1970s issue, she whispered. The insignia matched the patch they'd seen on the blurry surveillance frame. Everything inside her clicked into place. Mulberry found a hidden archive. Someone from Attica's past, or someone connected to that past, wanted to suppress it. And now Pierce, the only man who knew Mulberry's secret, had vanished without triggering a single camera. A guard stormed in, breathless. "Investigator, you need to see this. Outside!" Rourke and Hale ran after him, exiting into the frigid yard near the outer fence. Snow crunched underfoot as they approached the guard who discovered Mulberry's body earlier. He zoomed out a surveillance feed on his tablet, showing fresh footage recorded minutes ago. A figure, barely visible in the storm, moving along the maintenance path outside the prison walls. Hale blinked. How did anyone get out? The gate's guarded. Fences are electrified. Rourke watched the shaky footage. The figure paused, turned toward the camera, and in the grainy night image, she saw something chilling. A face, wrinkled, weathered, but determined. It wasn't Pierce. It wasn't staff. It wasn't a current inmate. Rourke whispered, "That's impossible." Strickland leaned over her shoulder, pale as bone. "Investigator, that man." His voice broke. He was a guard here during the 71 uprising, retired 30 years ago. Rourke stared in disbelief. Why would a former guard be on prison grounds? And how is he still getting in and out without detection? The camera zoomed in one more time. The old guard carried a gray metal box. Mulberry's box. Pierce was nowhere in sight. Rourke felt the cold cut straight to her bones. This wasn't just a murder. This wasn't just a cover-up. This was a network, one that never stopped operating, even decades after the riot that scarred Attica's name forever. And now, for the first time in years, someone from that buried era had returned, bringing with him a secret powerful enough to kill for. As the figure vanished from the frame, Hale turned to Rourke, voice barely a whisper. "What do we do now?" She didn't answer, because the truth she'd sensed from the start was finally staring back at her. The past wasn't dead. It had just stepped out of the shadows, and it was still deciding who would pay next. And somewhere inside Attica, someone who wasn't supposed to exist anymore was hunting. The storm worsened as dawn broke, a pale gray light barely penetrating the swirling snow. Investigator Lena Rourke stood in the yard staring at the frozen horizon where the mysterious retired guard had disappeared. The cold stung her skin, but it was a realization tightening her chest that truly chilled her. The past had returned, and it had taken Jonah Pierce with it. Hale came running toward her, breath puffing in the frigid air. "Lena, you need to see this." They rushed inside to the command center, where officers had gathered around a screen showing footage in the prison's outer maintenance tunnel, a tunnel no modern schematics mentioned. Hale pointed. That's where he went. They had a route. Something old, something built before the modernization upgrades. The tunnel was narrow, brick-lined, a corridor that looked like it belonged to another century. Strickland hovered behind them, pale and sweating. Those tunnels were sealed decades ago. Rourke glared. "Your definition of sealed is different from mine." Then a shout came from the radio room. "We got audio. Patrol just found something near the eastern ridge." Rourke and Hale rushed out, following two officers to a detention van idling at the far edge of the property. Snow whipped across a piece of fabric that clung to the back bumper, prison issue brown. Hale's stomach dropped. That's Pierce's uniform. Rourke pulled it free. A scrap of paper slipped out of the pocket. She caught it before the wind could steal it away. Pierce's shaky handwriting was unmistakable. "Don't trust the walls. They're listening." Her pulse hammered harder. He's alive. But for how long? As they made their way back inside, Rourke demanded every map, every blueprint, every outdated schematic the prison had on record. It took an hour of digging through dusty archives, but finally, there it was, a blueprint dated in 1969. A hand-drawn set of maintenance tunnels running beneath the east wing, branching into the woods beyond the outer fence. A perfect escape corridor. A perfect secret. Hale traced the route with his finger. This is how he got out, and how Pierce was taken. Rourke nodded. Which means whoever's behind this knows this place better than anyone alive. Strickland shook his head. But that guard, Henry Doyle's, he's in his 70s, retired due to health issues. There's no way he's walking through blizzards. Rourke cut in, carrying abducted inmates, stealing evidence, covering tracks. He's not working alone. The room went silent. Then the intercom crackled. Investigator Rourke. There's someone here to speak with you. Says it's urgent. They went to the intake lobby. There stood a woman bundled in a heavy coat, eyes red from crying. I'm Claire Doyles, she said. Henry's daughter. Rourke motioned her to sit. Claire, your father was seen on the grounds. We believe he abducted an inmate. We need everything you can tell us. Claire trembled. He's been talking about Attica again. For weeks. Said he had to fix what was broken. Said too many people had forgotten the truth. He kept looking at old newspaper clippings, old photographs of the prison after the uprising. Has he ever mentioned Mulberry? Rourke asked. Claire nodded. He used to. Said Mulberry reminded him of someone. Said the prison owed him something. I thought it was just old trauma resurfacing. He was there during the riot. He saw terrible things. I didn't think he'd go back. Hale leaned forward. Did he say where he might be going? Who he was working with? Claire shook her head. Only that he wasn't the only one who remembered. He said there were still keepers of the old order. I didn't know what that meant. Rourke did. It meant a group, a network, people who built their careers on the aftermath of the 1971 uprising and never let go of the power it gave them. It meant Mulberry wasn't killed because of what he found. He was killed because of who those files implicated. And Henry Doyles had taken that box, so the truth would stay buried. But if he was trying to fix the past, why kidnap Pierce? Rourke grabbed the old blueprints. We need to sweep the maintenance tunnels. Now. Hale and a tactical team followed her into the blizzard. The tunnels. The entrance was hidden by decades of overgrowth and a rusted metal grate that swung open with a scream. They stepped inside. The temperature dropped sharply, the air thick with mildew. Their flashlights barely reached the end of the corridor. The tunnel wound like a maze built from secrets and regret. Hale whispered, if they had been using this for years, anyone could have come and gone without a trace. Rourke moved ahead. Her beam caught something on the ground. A shoe print. Fresh. Then another. And next to it, a smear of blood. Not a pool. Not a scene. Just enough to say someone had been injured, but not killed. Pierce. They pressed onward. The tunnel widened into a chamber where old maintenance carts and broken tools gathered dust. Graffiti covered the walls. Names, dates, warnings carved by inmates long gone. One message stood out, carved deeper than the rest. We never left. Hale swallowed hard. This wasn't just a tunnel. It was a meeting place. Or a hiding place, Rourke murmured. A sudden echo froze them. Footsteps. Slow. Unsteady. From the dark, a figure appeared. Jonah Pierce. Alive. Barely. His hands were bound with rope, his face scraped, his breathing ragged. Hale rushed toward him, but Pierce shook his head violently. Don't come any closer. Rourke stepped forward. Pierce, we're getting you out. He staggered, eyes wide with fear. You don't understand. He didn't take me to kill me. He took me to show me. Show you what? Pierce pointed tremblingly down a deeper branch of the tunnel. What's coming? What was hidden? Mulberry didn't die because of the files. He died because he found out what they were still doing. It never stopped, Rourke. Rourke felt her stomach drop. What never stopped? Before Pierce could speak, another voice cut through the darkness. Old, heavy, broken but forceful, keeping order. Henry Doyle stepped into the chamber. Not armed, not running, just standing. Snow crusted on his coat, the gray metal box under his arm. His eyes locked on Rourke. This prison was built on blood. And when the blood dried, we learned the truth. Order must be preserved at any cost. Cost? Rourke snapped. You murdered a prisoner. You abducted another. Doyle shook his head slowly. I didn't kill Mulberry. The chamber fell silent. Rourke stared. Then who did? Doyle stepped closer, lowering the box to the ground. Someone inside. Someone who didn't want the past disturbed. Hale whispered, Strickland. Doyle nodded once. Your warden has been part of this since the day he arrived. He didn't inherit the secrets. He embraced them. Rourke felt everything tighten inside her. Doyle nudged the box toward her with his foot. This is everything. Names, memos, orders, proof. And Strickland knew Mulberry found it. He used my old access to frame the past, to distract you, to keep your eyes on me. Pierce collapsed to his knees. He wanted Mulberry to disappear quietly. And when you came, he panicked. Rourke opened the box. Inside, dozens of documents outlining unauthorized punishments, suppressed incident reports, transfers made to silence witnesses, and signatures linking multiple abuses directly to Warden Strickland. For years, Hale whispered, "This is enough to bring the entire administration down." Doyle nodded sadly. "I came back to stop him. I didn't know he'd kill to keep his empire standing." Rourke looked up. "Where is he now?" Doyle sighed. "Probably watching us." Then a distant alarm blasted. Gunshots followed. Panic rose through the walls. Hale grabbed the radio. "Dispatch? What's happening?" Static. Then a voice. Cold. Composed. "Investigator Rourke. Step away from the tunnels." "Strickland, it's over. You're not leaving with that box." Rourke lifted it and stared at Hale. "We're ending this." They marched out of the tunnel into chaos. Guards scrambling, sirens howling. At the far end of the yard, Strickland stood waiting, armed officers behind him, his eyes locked on the box in Rourke's hands. "You should have stayed out of this," he said. "This prison exists because the public believes it's controlled. You reveal what happened then and what's still happening now, and you destroy public trust." Rourke stepped forward. "You destroyed that trust the moment you let a man die to protect yourself." Strickland lifted his weapon, put the box down. Rourke didn't blink. No. Seconds stretched. Wind howled. Snow fell. Then one of Strickland's own officers lowered his gun. Another followed. The truth had already begun to move. Strickland saw it. His face twisted. He turned to run, but Doyle stepped out behind him, blocking his path. "You ruined us," Doyle whispered. "All of us." Strickland froze, and for the first time, he looked scared. He was taken into custody without resistance. Hours later, Rourke stood at the edge of the property, the storm finally breaking. Pierce was taken to the infirmary. Doyle surrendered peacefully. The box was already en route to state authorities. Hale approached her quietly. "It's over." Rourke shook her head. "No, this was just one prison, one man. But if these records are right, Attica wasn't alone. They're more like Strickland, more secrets buried." She looked back at the towering walls. Mulberry tried to warn us. Pierce tried to survive long enough to confirm it. And Doyle's. She exhaled. The ghosts of 71 didn't just haunt Attica. They built an entire system. Hale shivered. "What happens now?" Rourke started walking toward the gate, snow crunching beneath her boots. "Now," she said, "we follow the evidence, wherever it leads." She paused, staring at the sunrise breaking over the frozen prison. Because the terrifying truth about Attica, she tightened her grip on the box, is that its darkest stories were never trapped behind these walls. She turned away. They were allowed to grow. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Subscribe so you don't miss it.